We're getting back on track here with Kathryn and Emily, but as you know, we won't stay there for long because this is the Going Off Track podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn, that's Emily, and considering this is the probable last time we're going to see Imola on the calendar for a while, if not ever, that wasn't the worst race I've ever seen.
It was a fine farewell to Imola, if you will. It was only exciting because of safety cars.
Oh, what it was, and
100%.
And we said this right before we started recording. It was more intriguing than it was really exciting.
Yeah, I think there were like a lot of implications from this race. Like it was Lewis Hamilton's first race on Italian soil in a Ferrari, and it was Kimi's first home race, and I think there were a lot of like outside factors that maybe made it more exciting leading up to it, even though it was Imola. But without the safety cars and all of the pitting and this tire strategy, I think it would have been a snooze.
Oh, what 100% like that. The line between snooze and not that bad is razor thin.
Well, and I think too, we say, oh, it wasn't bad. It was actually like intriguing, but only because it was Imola. If it was any other race, it would have been like, meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we didn't get a flat out parade, but it was not that much better.
Right, and I think I like personally figured out why I don't love the race. Monaco, you can't pass at all. Imola, there's one spot where you can pass, and that's where all of the overtakes were. So it's like, no one cares, no one cares, no one cares, no one cares. Peaks interest. Nothing happened. No one cares, no one cares, no one cares, no one cares. Like, that's, I mean, I don't know. And then we have people pulling off into the grass. So, I also, okay, this is like a question I was wondering because I wasn't paying enough attention to it because Imola. But what was the difference between Ocon's DNF or retirement and Kimi's? It looked like they went off into a similar area. So why was one a virtual safety car and why was one an actual safety car? That's what I couldn't figure out.
So I'm pretty sure that the difference was the location and its nearness to an actual escape route.
Okay. So because when you look at it, they looked like they both...
They did.
Yeah.
They did, and I even said because I watched at Guesty Bestie's house this morning, but I said to him, oh, it won't be very long. It looks like he got off near an escape road, because that's what it kind of looked like.
Right.
But when you saw the camera angle, that was like if you're facing the wrong way on the track, you could see that it wasn't actually an escape road. It was just kind of like where the track kind of pulls off. So there wasn't an actual route to get the car off, so they did need to tractor it to an actual escape area, which is why it took so much longer. Whereas Ocon, I think they just needed to straight up push the car without the use of a crane.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
but like from just casually seeing it, it looked...
I thought they pulled off at basically the same spot.
I honestly was like, oh, there's the FIA again, not doing anything consistent. But okay, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, that's why Ocon got virtual, and that's why Kimi got a full on. It's hard to tell on the broadcast.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, so there's some exciting things. The radio was fun. It was great. I thought it was very entertaining. Fernando Alonso. So I watched with my dad this morning, and he was dying laughing at Fernando Alonso being like, this is a wreck. This is terrible. I have the worst effing luck in the world. And my dad's like, wow, tell us how you really feel. Like, how can you do that while you're racing?
When
I'm like,
Fernando,
oh, no, Dad, this is great.
When he gets going, he will just go. I mean, between Fernando's radio calls and poor Charles Leclerc's radio calls, and this is, and to even say that Ferrari, based on their qualifying, did not have a terrible day. Charles was not having it for a bunch of reasons, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But like those two radios really just highlighted the extremes of how people were feeling.
Yeah, but I also just listening to the Ferrari drivers complain all weekend long, like, the car is shit, the brakes suck, I'm not going anywhere, this is going nowhere, this is so bad. And then it's like, it's not actually that bad. Like,
yeah.
was okay. Yeah, I don't know. And I know we're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves here, but something else I want to talk about, which it's more season-wide, like thoughts of Emily versus Imola specific, but this is when it really triggered me, like noticing, and I think we may have talked about this before, but George Russell, he held up so many people today. Like, if you watched it, there was such a big gap between him and, I want to say, Oscar at the time. And everyone kept saying, like, oh, he's finished in the top 5 for every race. Like, he's having a killer season. I think he's just doing really well qualifying. And I will say that until I'm blue in the face. But if you think about it, and I was just watching it, I was like, he's not that good of a driver. He's just good at qualifying. He doesn't have, like, the long race. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But it really, like, clicked in my brain. And I kind of went back and, like, looked at times and stuff. And he always just ends up there because he's qualifying, but he doesn't necessarily drive a great race.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of he does take advantage of good qualifying, and he's in a Mercedes, which is a very good car. And that's kind of this like the thing with Lando is a good driver in a great car with a fantastic race engineer. Right. And George is a good qualifying driver who manages to maintain his position in his car basically by positioning his car to a place where there are no other cars around. So, George tends to be in no man's land. Exactly. Yeah. So we don't really know what kind of good driver he is because he really just takes advantage and is just, George doesn't do anything and gets a podium, except not today.
Well, and that brings me to like my point of looking forward to next week. It's Monaco. And like seeing Alonso qualify in the top 5, right? And George was up there. Carlos qualified really high. Maybe Alonso was 6, but whatever. Way higher than he'd qualified all season. Like that, I think it's going to be interesting when you have people like that who can qualify and know Monaco really, really well, but their car is just going to hold everybody up. I think next week is going to be interesting purely because how people qualify. The race won't be interesting, but it'll be like, oh, wow, this person qualified really high. So I know that there's the new thing. I know, but still, there's only so much that a pit stop strategy
it's gonna be another intriguing, not exciting, probably. But no, I mean, you're right. Like, especially like remember Fernando in Monaco in 2022 or 2023, where literally like the front runners were here and everyone else was here because Fernando was holding literally 14 everybody people behind him. Yeah. So that could be very interesting to look for.
But even I think with George too, because like the Mercedes is, I wouldn't say it's a very good car, but it's better than they were last season, I think.
Yes.
But I still don't think it can compete with the likes of, I don't want to say Red Bull in general, I'll just say Max and the McLarens and maybe even a Williams. I think Williams and Mercedes are kind of the same where they are. If you look at where Albon is placing. But I just think next week it's going to be really interesting to see where George ends up because I think George will be that Fernando of like holding people up.
Yeah, that definitely could happen, especially if you get a qualifying where it's like Max and the McLarens and then everyone else.
Or even if it's like Max, George, McLarens, like the McLarens are going to have to get a really good start or have to figure out a way to get past George. But also George hasn't been having like the best pit stops. So maybe it's a pit issue or a pit strategy or tire strategy that really helps them out. But I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Thoughts of Emily today.
Yeah,
I willingly looked up research on George Russell. I just had to highlight this.
I am impressed with you because usually I'm the one who has to look those up on him. But before we get into the rest of Imola, something that came out right before that I think is actually kind of cool is Anthony Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton's father, who we already know has adopted like half of the grid at this point, is now officially going to work with the FIA in a role of working with young drivers, basically becoming everyone's new dad.
Okay, so I have thoughts on this.
Yes.
Do I think this is cool? Yes. Do I think that it gives young drivers a really amazing opportunity to, have a figure like that? Yes. Do I think that this is like MBS's. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to say that, but like, do I think this is him trying to garner favor with, you know, Papa Hamilton to then get Lewis Hamilton on board, and he has a lot of sway with the drivers. He's very well respected. Like, I don't know.
I don't disagree
know where
with
the truth lies, and it makes me uncomfortable to be like, I love this, I support this, this is great. If there are negative connotations, I think that's where I struggle with.
Yes, I fully agree with you. This is another in a long line, and we talked about this in our Imola predictions of here are all these things that Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the FIA president, is doing to attempt to solidify his position and gain favor for everybody who hates him right now because going into the presidential election later this year. So is it beneficial for young drivers to have someone like Anthony Hamilton who does not come from the typical racing family, but got his son into the best position possible to become one of the best racers in the world and in the history of the sport? Absolutely. Is MBS being shady about it? Also,
potentially.
Yes.
Yeah, because I can just see a world where MBS is like puppeteering him and being like, this is what you have to tell them, and then like I can just see it being like kind of an invisible hand role.
I can see him wanting that, but I don't necessarily see that actually happening because like I'm sure this is not that much of a paid gig, and it's not like I
don't think he's hurting for money, Kathryn.
I mean that too. Like I don't necessarily know how much leverage there is going to be involved. It's probably like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And Anthony Hamilton says, I'm an empty nester. Why not? And this could be cool to do, and I love working with young drivers. So I don't necessarily think that there's much leverage that our least favorite president has on the Hamiltons, Anthony Hamilton specifically.
Well, I mean, he can pull the role and be like, you're not allowed to fraternize.
And that would look even better.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think it's really interesting, and the point that you brought up of Lewis Hamilton not coming from a typical driver background and his dad doing everything that's possible. I think this is an interesting role, and there's not a lot of details on the role. It's not like specific resume bullet points of what everything that he's going to do. But what I would like to see and what I kind of envision this role and what his figurehead would be is there's a lot of these young kids who have to leave home and they don't have that support on race weekends. They don't have that support constantly. So him being at the races and being their number one cheerleader, or him being there to guide them through when their parents are across the world, I think almost that piece of it versus the true sporting piece is more important. Because if you look at these drivers, I mean, their emotional intelligence has to be really high, their social intelligence has to be really high, as well as the sporting and athleticism. I think this will kind of help them be better, well-rounded, and just help them kind of have someone. I mean, we all saw the moment with Isaac Hadjar, which I thought was just so incredible. And I don't think this role would have the same impact if it wasn't Lewis Hamilton's dad. The only other person that I could say is like Carlos Sainz Sr., because he has a son that's gone through it. He's been part of the sport. He understands. He can relate. But if you just have like, we have this random figurehead who's like worked behind the scenes forever, no one knows who he is, and he's going to start working with young drivers as like in a mentoring capacity, I don't think it would be as impactful as Anthony Hamilton.
Exactly. It's the name, it's the how he got there, how he got Lewis there. Like that's the only reason why it works. Like it wouldn't have the same impact if Jos Verstappen did or Lando's dad.
That would just be like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Hide the forks, hide the wrenches, like make sure everyone has a cell phone so they can get home from the gas station. Like, oh my God, that would be no, they wouldn't have any drivers to go into the young driver programs. They would all be leaving the sport because they've been traumatized.
Right, exactly.
But I could see Carlos Sainz Sr. doing it too, if he doesn't like that, even though, yes, they come from a little bit more money and they have more of a traditional upbringing in motorsport, let's say. I still think he is a well-respected senior member of the community.
Of the driver parent community.
Of the community. That would be able to, you know, lend this knowledge. But I'm excited to see what this role is. I hope it's like not just in title and he actually does something, but we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. So that remains to be seen, but it could be, you know, a continuing of a surprising amount of positivity going into the, you know, future of young drivers in Formula One. So cross our fingers and hope that this is something nice.
Yes. So now we get into my favorite part of the podcast where I don't say anything and Kathryn just gives us fun facts about Max Verstappen. So let the record book portion of the pod commence.
Yes. So Franz Herrmann in his debut with Red Bull, just kidding, Max Verstappen, he won in Red Bull's 400th race in Formula One, which I think it was a big deal, but I don't think it was made of a huge deal. Like they had the decal in the garage and they talked about it a little bit. But I think that there have been other teams that have been more front and center with milestone race victory, like race number type things. But this morning I was like, oh, right. It's Red Bull's 400th race. It was also, 5 o'clock in the morning. I was very tired. But not only that, but Max now has 116 podiums at Red Bull, which is the same that Michael Schumacher amassed when he was at Ferrari. And all of the Verstappen family, Schumacher family ties. It's just of course. And everybody's throwing out that really old, cute video of baby Max going and hugging Michael Schumacher in the wow, words, in one of the hospitality suites. Red Bull also has overtaken Ferrari as most winning team in the 21st century, 124 race wins to 123, which I didn't realize that Ferrari had finagled that many wins, especially considering how much dominance Mercedes has had over the last, decade?
But 21st century, those are all the Schumacher years.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's for, the way that my brain contextualizes Formula One, I forget that Formula One existed when I was 10 years old. So
well, and also I think for the Mercedes, yes, they were dominant, but they weren't winning every single race like Red Bull has for the last however many years. So
right,
there's more variety, I would say.
Yeah, you're
Wait,
totally
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Question portion of the podcast. So of the 124 wins by Red Bull, how many are Max? Because I know he has 116 podiums, but how many victories does he have?
He's got 65. This is his 65th win. Okay,
so he has about half then.
Yes, and the other half
Checo has 2, and then the other half is Sebastian Vettel.
It's Sebastian Vettel, a handful from Daniel Ricciardo,
2 from Checo.
and a couple from Checo. And that is it. Yeah, it's
found another way to talk badly about Checo. I feel so proud of myself.
Did you see in qualifying? I don't know if you had a chance to watch because I think you were in transit, but in qualifying they put up a graphic about an impeding investigation, and Checo's name was in it. It said there was it was impeding investigation for Perez and Norris.
Love. No, yeah. I did not see that, unfortunately. I just caught the highlights of qualifying because I don't remember why.
You were traveling, I think.
I was traveling, I think. I don't know.
So the other
world went 48 hours for me.
It really has been. So then the last part of the record book portion of the Max Verstappen segment of the podcast is that Max has moved up to 3rd all time in laps led in his career with 3,560. Obviously, 2 years ago it was the quest for 1,000 laps led that he got to. So now he's moved ahead of Sebastian Vettel, and he is behind Lewis Hamilton, who holds the record with 5,487, and Michael Schumacher, who has 5,111. And to speak of the race itself, Red Bull took advantage of some perfectly timed safety cars from where Max was on the track, but also this was one of Max's best front row starts of the season. And I have said that Max has greatly improved on his race starts in his career, but really this year his race starts have not been that great, and I think that this it looked bad to start, but going from being almost overtaken by George and losing, to P3 to taking the lead of the race, one of his best race starts that we've seen in a while from him.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably one of the more exciting things that happened, but it again happened in turn 1.
So. Exactly. And then we had, and then Max was gone.
He just went off, yeah. Also, I knew when they were doing the safety car restart, I knew he was just inching. I'm like, and I told my dad, I was like, this corner he's going to take off. Yep. And my dad's like, why is he just weaving back and forth? Why doesn't he just go? I'm like, because he gets to set it and he's going to just go right at the corner. I thought it was a really good restart from him too. So
yeah, it was great. And speaking of that restart, I want to talk about McLaren because obviously Oscar started on pole, Lando started in P4, and they went a little topsy-turvy. Oscar was pit very early trying to undercut Max and, going for that initial,
which they knew was going to be a long shot, so I'm like, why, whatever.
Yeah, the McLaren strategy for Oscar, usually I'm like the first person to criticize McLaren for their strategies. I think it was less so bad and more so they missed those timings with the safety cars that were perfect for Red Bull. But my question is, when you consider how old Oscar's tires were versus Lando's going into Max's restart, Oscar's were like 21 laps old and Lando's were 5. Should McLaren have told the drivers, like, be prepared to switch as soon as Max goes off so that Lando can get after Max? Because with the car that Lando has, I think that in, 12 laps, that there could have been a chance that Lando could have gone for the win today.
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm really glad it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they had the pace to outdrive Max today. I just don't think so. And so I think that's why they just didn't. Like, they were more concerned about protecting the podium spots than having Lando go after.
That is true because Lando did have George on his back right after that restart.
So it's like, do we risk it to where we lose a podium position, or do we just hunker down and say, like, hey, 2-3 is the best we got in us today?
Yeah, I do feel like this is a little bit of shades of this year in Japan where McLaren probably should have, traded positions and sent, Lando after Max or Oscar after Max, and they didn't. So I don't think it would have been terrible for them to try because Max was gone. He was like 6 seconds up by the time the race ended. But I do think that if Lando and Oscar were not fighting each other for P2, and even Lando said it, like, what we should do if we want to try to get a win in this race, which is let Oscar move. And of course Lando's going to say that because Lando needs to gain some ground in the championship that he's not going to win. But I do think I think that if McLaren is serious, they should have made the switch. I'm glad they did it because my guy won. Right. But I think that
at the same time, like, I think it was just with such a tight restart, they didn't want to risk it.
Yeah. So
I mean, maybe they should have fought each other for so long, but
there's that too.
You said something interesting, like the championship that Lando's not going to win. I still think Zach is pushing for Lando to be world champion.
100%.
If Oscar wins, it'll be in spite of and despite of his team. Like, he will go against all odds and win. And I hope that's true because I do really like Oscar. Lando's just rubbing me the wrong way, and I can't stand him anymore. And it's just like the comment that George had last year in one of the races, he's like, I was projected to be on the podium. This got messed up, and I'm going to stop my feet and be so upset. And, like, Daddy, I want it now. I want a golden goose now. Like, that is how Lando comes off, and I'm over it. I don't think that's, super professional or cool of him, but whatever. It is what it is.
I think that Oscar would definitely, like, do I want Max to win another championship? Obviously. Would I be thrilled for Oscar to win the championship this year? Also, yes. But, Oscar did not make it easy for Lando to get by him. I mean, He made it easy enough. It wasn't like, when Charles and Carlos were fighting for P3 in Monza a couple years ago. But like, Oscar knew what he was doing. Oscar knows what he's doing, and
Mm-hmm.
he knows what he needs to do to secure the championship, but also make sure that his car makes it to the end of the race so that he, you know, he's maintained his lead. He got a decent haul of points today, and Max is the one who's chipping away at Lando, and Lando does have, you know, cause to be concerned.
Yeah, but I don't know. Who knows what's going on? We don't make the calls, but anyways.
Speaking of who knows what's going on, Ferrari, what is going on with them? What did they do between Saturday and Sunday?
So honestly, I think somehow they figured out a strategy, or they just got really freaking lucky with the safety cars. Like they did get really lucky. Their placement ended up well. Like their tire strategy was probably not great, but with all the safety cars, they ended up not, you know, shitting the bed too hard. But yeah, it was a solid, you know, higher points finish for them. I think we haven't necessarily seen this good of a finish from Ferrari. I think 4-6 is pretty good. I think, especially for Lewis, it's his first race in Italy. That's exciting.
They recovered from a truly terrible qualifying. Charles was pissed. So to Charles's point, they really did bungle the strategy for him. They didn't have a tire that Charles wanted. They obviously Charles did have to give up that place to Alex because of the way that he pushed Alex off, and used, like, it would have been a penalty, which would have, I think, dropped him 2 positions.
And so, that's why I wanted to talk about, because my dad is like, wait, I'm really confused. Like, why would he just give up the place instead of, like, waiting to see if the penalty would come out? I'm like, because
the penalty would have been worse.
It'll be way worse. So him just giving up the place and then potentially having 3 more laps to then pass him, like, that's better than dropping down 3, 5, however many places it would have been. It
wasn't too many places. There was enough of a gap. I remember looking and trying to do the math.
It wouldn't have been a time penalty, right? It would have been a position penalty.
No, it would have been a 5 or 10. If it was 10, it would have been pretty bad. If it was 5, it would have been like maybe 2 positions. So I
thought it would have just been like handed a certain position penalty versus time. But I don't know,
it would have been,
because they do that only for certain things. I don't know all the rules, obviously, but
it depends on when the penalty happens, gets applied,
and like what it is, because if it's after the fact, anyways, but I think it was smart for them just to do that, have him just drop down to 1. I think that was, you know, really smart. Again, poor Charles on his radio, but but no, and I think what it is with the Ferraris, again, they haven't been qualifying well, but they've been doing decently well. I think they have much better, like, long race pace than single lap pace. I don't think this car, until they make drastic upgrades, I don't think this car is going to qualify well. So with that being said, I think they're really going to struggle in Monaco next week.
Yeah, and to speak on qualifying, they had when you get beaten by a pair of Aston Martins who are doing their fast lap on a pair of medium tires, which the medium tires are technically soft tires because of the extreme tire, you know, tires that they went with this weekend. But like, that just looks so bad. And it was hilarious to, you know, anybody who's not a member of the Tifosi. I'm sorry, Tifosi, that was probably really terrible for you to have to deal with. But it really, like, that just looked so bad. And yes, you know, Aston Martin brought upgrades, and it was everyone was surprised, but that was just like, this is Fred, you need to fix this.
One other thing I want to talk about too is I think Hamilton is finally, like, settling into the car. He looked a lot more comfortable this weekend. Not comfortable because the car was sucking all weekend, but like in the race, it looks like he has more confidence in the car, I would say.
Yeah, he was making some good moves.
Some good moves, some good overtakes where it's like, maybe a few races ago, I wouldn't have expected him to be able to make the overtake, but it feels like he's getting more comfortable. I mean, a P4 finish, I think, is really good for Hamilton, especially in this car that we've talked about is not the best car. But it's interesting because I feel like Carlos is still struggling with the Williams. Because I know we have a lot of rookies, but rookie adjustment to cars is going to be a much longer process.
That's a different bag.
Different category. But these are the 2 drivers that really had big changes, right? And I think Carlos is still struggling in the Williams.
In the long run, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to kind of watch those two. Granted, they're in completely different machinery, but you can tell when a driver's more comfortable and trusts the car and understands what's happening. And I think Carlos just still is hesitant with the Williams.
I mean, look at Carlos. He was literally doing tire strategies in his car, which we love that for him. But like, he was doing that from like basically like the middle of the back of the grid. So, but yeah, so Carlos can qualify pretty well. He's getting to that point, but it's that long run that he's still looking for. Whereas his teammate Alex Albon is leading Williams to one of their best seasons in years.
In a long time.
He's had 40 points this season. He's had points in 6 of 7 races, 3 P5 finishes, including back-to-back between this race and last race, and is really just solidifying Williams in that no man's land of P5 in the championship.
Yeah.
And we love that for them.
We do. We really do. I think it's, again, sad and frustrating for Carlos, but I also think it's telling for like the back half of the season. Like if Albon can keep driving and keep performing well with the car, that's only going to mean that eventually Carlos will pick up and then they'll both have a really strong, I think they're going to have a really strong finish with Williams. I would love to see Williams in like P4 at the end of the season. I don't know if that's going to happen, but at this rate, I mean, I wouldn't count it out because who knows what's going to happen with Ferrari. That's who's in front of them right now. Completely recognize they have like 60 more points or whatever, but I don't know. It could be interesting.
There's still time. Yeah, I mean, I know so many people are, but I'm really impressed with how Alex is doing. Like, he's really come into his own. And we knew that Carlos coming into Williams, like, he wasn't going to be fighting for, like, big points this year, just with the way that Williams is going. And I think that even Carlos's position now at Williams is ahead of schedule, and Williams I think is ahead of schedule going into the new regulation next year. So it's like, it's all smiles for Williams. And I mean, yes, it wasn't Carlos's greatest race, but still he finished in the points today. So
exactly. And I think honestly, this is exactly what JV has been wanting, is just 2 solid drivers with like a car where they can get points and get more money and grow. And I think it's working. I think his whole plan was the long game. It was never like, I'm going to come in a year, I'm going to flip this team around. I mean, we've seen gradual progress, but this is the first year where they have 2 drivers where they can like really trust the drivers and they're experienced drivers. Again, talking about a year that doesn't matter yet, but I'm excited for next year when everyone goes back to equal footing of like brand new regulation. It'll be a new car for Alex and for Carlos. So I think we'll see more of a balance between the two, where like this car is pretty similar to what Alex was driving last year. He's already used to it. Carlos is still, trying to work out the kinks. But next year when they both transition to different cars, I think we'll see, more them on more equal footing. But I still think they're going to do well. I don't think this is bad. And again, Carlos is actually getting points now. He was struggling earlier, so we're seeing progress.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I remember, and I've talked about this before, but in the Williams episode of this season of Drive to Survive, James Vowles talked about how like the goal for Williams last year was P8 in the championship. So like that's what they were going for. They got P9, but they were going for P8. They weren't shooting for, P5, P6, P7. I really want to know what they're shooting for this year. Like what is the goal that they put on their goal setting, chart this year for where they want to be in the Constructors Championship season? I'm very curious about that.
I don't know if they set like, this is how many points we want, this is our position, but I know in the episode, I'm fairly positive JV was like, our goal for next year with Carlos is to be leading the middle pack. And so I think middle pack is like,
P5.
5, 6, 7. Yeah. So I think where they are now, and they're like in a very good spot because they're what, 60 or so points behind Ferrari, give or take a few, but then they have Haas like way behind them. And based on how Haas did today, I think they're like pretty solidly in 5th. Again, I think it's a long shot for them to get 4th, but I think 5th is super solid, especially if they can keep, squeaking out 5, 6 finishes. I don't like, Haas can't do that. Aston Martin can't. None of the teams below them can get a P6 finish, P5 finish. So as long as they can keep, getting more points than other teams, they'll be ahead, which is like logic, but
they will be what Aston Martin was last year, where Aston Martin was very quietly in no man's land. There was no way that they were going to catch up to P4, and everybody else was squabbling for those few points to share in 6 through 10. And that will be Williams, but it will be more publicly exciting about Williams because Williams has been in the basement for so long.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, not that they're an underdog because they are such a, storied program and team, but I think it's just like, again, James Vowles said, we want to bring this team back to its former glory of and I think it's always exciting to see like an underdog, if you will, really make a move. And I think it's fun to see, the Davids win and the Goliaths go down sometimes. So
yeah, I mean, there was a point where Alex was running in the podium positions. Like,
I know, I was like,
love to see that. Stop the count.
Well, even my dad, he's like, wait, is that like Alex Albon and like the ALB? I'm like, yes, it is. But yeah, and then so my dad like casually watches when I watch and I'm home, and he's watched a few episodes of Drive to Survive, but he's like, doesn't Williams suck? And I'm like, not this year,
not anymore,
not now. Yeah. But, okay, I think we've talked about Williams enough. We could keep talking about it because it's, like, my new favorite team. But, so one thing I do want to talk about.
Ma'am, I'm busy.
Like,
can't you see
I'm busy? To go off track for, like, 5
Sorry.
seconds. No, you're fine. Off track for 5 seconds. Yuki's crash.
Yes.
Made my stomach hurt. The fact that he drove today made my stomach hurt even more. Like, understanding he probably got checked out, whatever. There's no way you can tell me he had that crash and didn't have even the slightest concussion. And if you do tell me that, you're lying. Like,
I mean, look at what happened with Lance Stroll a couple of races ago.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so incredibly frustrating to watch. Like, I understand they're athletes. People play injured all the time. Head injuries are, like, not something to mess around with.
Don't screw with head injuries.
Right. But also, it's like, we keep preaching driver safety, but it's so hard to take that seriously or, like, really accept that messaging when you have such bad crashes and then you don't have, like, a mandatory cool-off period. Even just for, like, observation or anything. Like, it was, 24 hours between that happening and him racing?
And he was... my concussions that I have had in the past have taken a little bit of time to develop themselves, but I will say that Formula One has some of the most state-of-the-art safety technology. Like, yes, that was a terrible crash, but I remember thinking when he, like, popped right out of the car after flipping the car over.
I know.
That it reminded me of, A, this is why we have the halo, and B, it reminded me of when I did the Kathryn Watches Every Race in 2016, the crash in Australia from Fernando Alonso, where he didn't have the halo, he flipped the car over. Fernando got out of the car, but he also had a punctured lung, and he got out of the car. So the fact that the advancements in driver safety have improved to the point where a crash that, like, yes, Yuki probably had but the other part is Yuki probably knows how to lie about having a concussion.
Well, yeah, I guess. But you get my point. Like,
I fully get your point.
I don't understand, but I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he walked away. But yeah, just kind of like...
That crash was scary. It was scary.
It wasn't quite like Zhou Guan Yu Silverstone scary.
People were comparing it to that, and having
similar
seen
because
it
so many
having seen it so many times in that season of Drive to Survive, where it was like that was just the dramatic, clip.
It was
that
a whole episode of that they just
literally,
replayed,
and of course we all know that is a race that I have not and will not ever watch, but. I really didn't think it was that much like Zhou Guan Yu's crash, but it was still, like, that was nasty. Like, anytime a car goes upside down is bad.
Yeah, the only similarity is, like, it went into the fence. Like, that's the only similarity.
Yeah, but like, Zhou Guan Yu landed on his, like...
flight and then just kept going. And then, never forget, slowly... George running straight up and down. Like, oh my god, I will never forget that. But... no, Zhou's was really, really bad. Yuki's was scary, but I don't think... But it's the same thing like Lance Stroll in Singapore last year. Super scary, but not the worst we've ever seen.
Right.
But again, he had a concussion and he did not race.
Yeah.
Anywho.
But
I
also
think
just
with all that being said, Yuki still had a great race today.
concussion
or not.
Concussion or not, I was very impressed. Like not only did Max take advantage of the safety cars, but Yuki was also able to take advantage of the timing of the safety cars, because that really saved him from he gained 10 positions starting from the pit lane to end up in the points. Yes, Red Bull came away with 26 points, 25 for Max, 1 from Yuki, but still better than nothing.
It's still a point, because how many times, like, well, not how many times, but like we talked about how championships are not always like hundreds of points off. Like sometimes they can be really close, and all of these, 1 point here, 2 points here, they'll add up. So
yeah, exactly. So do we want Yuki to be looking for more? Yes. Was Yuki able to recover from a truly awful crash to get, into the points? And that is something that we would not have seen from other drivers in that seat.
Agreed.
So
probably because they wouldn't have raced because they have a concussion, they would have sat out. But I digress.
Now, one more thing is this is my personal plea as a Red Bull fan to Red Bull: do not touch Isaac Hadjar. Leave Isaac Hadjar the hell alone. Keep him in the V-Carb. Keep him in the Racing Bulls. Let Yuki stick it out in the Red Bull. People, when Yuki crashed, they were like, he's got Isaac breathing down his back. Yeah, Isaac has a lot of potential. Let him stay at Racing Bulls to meet that potential. Do not yank him out of there and put him in Red Bull. It's too soon. Don't do it.
Well, but here's the other thing. People are like calling for Yuki's head because he crashed. But it's like, okay, if that was Lawson, there's no way he would have been able to start from the pit lane and get a point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yuki being able to do that just shows how good of a driver he is and how he deserves to have that seat.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is because this was coming from a very loud voice in the paddock this weekend in Jacques Villeneuve. But like, no, leave Isaac alone. Isaac is a future Red Bull driver, 100%. You can't convince me otherwise. When Max retires, he'll take that seat.
Exactly. I was going to say he'll take Max's seat when he retires.
But let him stay at Racing Bulls until then. I am so serious about that.
Okay, let's quickly just kind of like buzz through the people that sucked this weekend, because
in the section I call Womp Womp,
they know they sucked. They know that they need to work harder, and it is what it is. Franco, poor guy. Like, I had high hopes for him this weekend, but yeah, it's.
I think it's a little bit of karma coming after Flavio Briatore, and the real reason why I wanted to talk about this and the Alpine of it all is mostly because when Franco was announced as Jack Doohan's replacement, which also Mick Doohan this weekend has just been all over social media, Jack Doohan's dad, with like, really? Okay. But Flavio said that Franco Colapinto would have a 5-race deal to see what he could do. And then 2 days ago, he says, I don't know who said that. He's just going to be in the seat. So it's like, Flavio, you said that. So is Flavio okay? Like, I'm not worried about Flavio, but is Flavio okay?
Well, and this is the thing. Like, I'm so over everything in Alpine and like even talking about it, because like it doesn't matter. Like, he'll say one thing, he'll turn around and say it again, and it's just like us talking about it. He's doing it to get attention and to have people talking about it. I know that's what he's doing. I could care less. I don't care about Alpine. I'm over it.
Yeah, and Gasly just was qualified well and then was nowhere.
He's irrelevant as always.
Yeah, they were fighting for P15 today, and it's like Alpine needs to work on their karma.
Yeah.
And also get rid of the guy who should still be banned for life. Like, go away, Flavio. One more thing about Flavio is the team has announced that Flavio Briatore is the team principal, and he is the team principal in name, but in the team principal in legality, it is a man named, where did I put it? I wrote it down. Dave Greenwood, who is the race director, because Dave Greenwood is actually licensed to be a team principal and Flavio Briatore is not. So he says that he is the team principal and he will act like it, but he isn't actually, which I just think is funny. But it also means that Dave Greenwood is going to be sacked at Spa.
Well, they just need someone to hold the role and be licensed. So as long as he just like holds it in title and doesn't get in his way, I don't think he'll be fired.
We'll see. But yes. That was something I noticed. It's like, how can you not be licensed to be a team principal? Well, apparently you can't.
Yeah, again, they got so many issues. I could care less.
I know.
I'm over it. So, okay, something that I was really excited about after qualifying was Fernando Alonso. I was like, oh my God, he's finally going to get points. He qualified really well. We're probably just going to have like a parade, and this is his shot. And then he had the worst luck of anyone today and ended up nowhere near the points. Poor guy. So that was a little disappointing. I could care less kind of where Lance Stroll shakes out. I've forgotten Lance Stroll exists for the most part this season. He's been pretty irrelevant. Aston Martin in general is just, they're
focusing on they're waiting for the newie car. They're just like, we're waiting for 2026 in the newie car. But still, this is like, we don't want Fernando to go over in points this year. So this is a good sign that the updates that they brought to the car worked. They got unlucky with the safety cars and track position, but this is where you want teams to be going, especially going into the European tour.
Yeah. Oh God, and then poor Kimi. I know, he had such a rough weekend.
Yeah.
Just did not do well. It's the pressure. The pressure just got to him. It was too much all at once. But yeah, so he didn't have a great race, but who knows? Like we've said, we're going into the European leg of all of this. These are tracks that he's more familiar with.
Tracks that he didn't grow up 25 miles away from.
Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully he does a little bit better. But again, he's a rookie. This is bound to happen. This is his first DNF of the year.
Right, so,
yeah. Compared to all the other rookies who, I mean, all of them but him DNF'd the very first race. So
basically, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I take it in stride. It's a learning opportunity. He's still young, so it didn't like...
This isn't going to ruin his career. And this isn't even going to ruin his Monaco. Like, he'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so with that, let's get into our predictions, see how we did. You picked up quite a few points this weekend.
Finally.
I took some big swings and did not.
Yes.
Okay, so for pole, you had Oscar, I had Max. It ended up being Oscar, so you got a point for that.
Which could have been a total toss-up. Like, you got it last week.
I know. So podium ended up being Max, Lando, Oscar. You had Oscar, Lando, Max. So although you didn't get it in order, you still got the podium. So you got 3 points for that. And then I had Oscar, Max, Kimi. Unfortunately, that was not it. Also, pause for a second. When George was in P3, I'm like, God damn it, George. You're going to ruin our podiums again. And then for P10... it was Yuki, like we were talking about. You had Ollie Behrman, who unfortunately did not finish, and I had Franco Colapinto, who had a very bad weekend.
No, Ollie did finish. It looked like he was going to retire the car. They even said, but it was Ocon. But it was Yuki. Surprise, it was Yuki.
Yes.
And also, we had a guest picker on, which was, I turned to Adam right before the race started and said, hey, tell me your podium. And his podium was Oscar, Max, Lando. So he also picked the correct drivers in correct podium. If you would like to be featured in our podium picks for Monaco or future races, send those to us on Instagram at going.off.track, and we might pick yours to feature, and it won't be just me turning into my best friend and saying, hey, tell me your podium. So next week, it could be you.
Yes, send us your podiums. See how hard it is. That is what I want to say is like, it's a lot harder than you think. Okay, so biggest surprise, you said it was going to be an exciting Imola.
We said it was intriguing, not exciting.
Very
the bar
subjective.
Is low.
The bar is low. It wasn't the worst. Last year was horrible. Mm-hmm. This year, not
but like what's interesting is even with Lando on Max's ass the entire last 20 laps of the race, it still wasn't that exciting of a race, where I think that this one was, and the bar is in the toilet, significantly better, moderately better, just better in general.
And my big surprise was that Kimi was gonna get a podium. That did not happen.
It'll happen this year. It just wasn't today.
I don't know if it'll be this year. Maybe next year. Okay, and then who's going to do a dumb... Even though I picked him for podium, just now I'm walking it back. I'm like, I don't know. Not to his fault. I think it's more the Mercedes car, but I digress. Okay, so who's going to do a dumb? You said Alpine. Absolutely. They did not have a good weekend. I said Ferrari. I don't think they did
give
a
it
dumb.
to you.
Yeah, one, they didn't qualify well. And I also think, like, strategy and, like, Charles wanting to go to a tire and they're like, oh no, we don't have that tire. Like, I just didn't think they managed things well this weekend for him to be able to have, what he's looking for in the race. So with that, our current standings, Kathryn has 6 points, I have 5 points. It can go any way. We'll see how we go. But
we have many more races to come.
Yep, and this will be our last Imola race potentially for a while. So
yeah, if we were gonna have more Imola races, they would have announced it before today
or this weekend. Yeah, so I don't think it's being renewed. I mean, potentially maybe way far down the line, but I don't know.
I don't know either, but I think for a swan song for Imola, like this was like at least last year's race wasn't the last year of Imola. Like at the very least, we had some intrigue, we had some things that kept some level of interest, especially for a track that has had so many exciting races, so many significant races to Formula One. At least we were given this, even though it wasn't, a showstopper today.
No, it was vanilla ice cream, but it had sprinkles on it. That's the best way I can put it. I'm sorry, vanilla gelato with sprinkles on it.
yeah, vanilla. We're in Italy. Let's do gelato. Perfect.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's all I have to say about Imola. So
yes. So let's move on to your off-track moment of the weekend.
Yes. So keeping in theme with our dear buddy Kimi Antonelli, he brought his entire class on a field trip to the race this weekend. They all took pictures. I thought it was super cute because we have to remember he's still a child. But I saw something on Instagram that really made me laugh, and it's like, he just really wanted his crush to watch him race, so he brought his whole class instead, and like then he had to sit there and have a horrible weekend in front of all these people.
I think he has a girlfriend though.
I know. Yes. It was just like a joke. It's like my man's just out here trying to show off to his crush, invites the entire class, and then DNF.
The thing that I saw that was similar to that was, this is the only way you get all these Italian Ferrari fans to wear Mercedes gear to an F1 race.
Yeah, I saw that too. But no, I thought it was really cute and really cool. Again, I think it added to the pressure, but it's just cute to be like, yeah, they had a field trip and he was racing. Just another reminder of how young he is and how impressive it is that he has a seat. So
yeah, he's still going to school too. Like
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there was like a video of him pulling up to class in like this decked out one of a kind Mercedes. And I'm like, this is so funny.
Imagine going to school with him and being like he's that guy in your class.
Yeah.
And then my really quick off-track moment is I have been watching wall-to-wall ESPN because it has been softball regionals, and they have like the typical Formula One commercial, the rock stars of racing, blah, blah, blah. If you're in the States, you know the commercial that I'm talking about. But I thought it was really interesting yesterday. I saw this about 3 times. They aired the commercial, but they aired it advertising Monaco next week instead of Imola as of yesterday, tomorrow. And I'm just like, it really goes to show just how much nobody wants to deal with Imola anymore, that even majorly advertising that there is an F1 race in less than 18 hours and you're not talking about it, where like if this was Miami, it's wall to wall F1 in Miami in 46 hours. Like,
but we talked about this last year too, because like they only advertise Monaco, Vegas, Miami, and Cook. Like those are the only ones that they advertise. So it's not surprising to me that they're advertising. It's
not surprising. It's just funny to me.
But like this, we talked about this a lot. Like they only talk about Monaco.
Well, it's also like
they're like the most exciting weekend in racing, and I'm like, actually, it's not.
No, but it's also like they'll play that commercial and they'll be like, watch Formula One on the ESPN family of networks, and that there's a race this weekend. I just thought it's so funny, like. We're going into Imola. We're like Formula One is physically in Imola, getting ready to race in Imola, and it's like, let's talk about Monaco.
But it could be Spa, and they would still say, let's talk about Monaco. Like, because that's the only one that matters. So I don't think it's, like, Imola specific. I think it's just because it's Monaco.
It's the lack of American context in Formula One.
Yeah. Okay, so up next, speaking of Monaco, we will have our Monaco Predictions episode coming out. This has been our Imola recap episode. Thanks for going off track with us, guys.